Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayathri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation.
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
And sometimes what didn't.
You will also hear very personal experiences.
And insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
These podcasts are made possible by PM Power Consulting, who have helped individuals, teams, and organizations on their delivery excellence journeys.
Hello, I'm excited to host my first podcast. This is Gayatri. Ever wondered if it's possible to have multiple careers and successful one at that? In today's episode, we are talking to Chitra, my colleague from PM Power Consulting. We are talking about her exciting career journey, starting in avionics and moving towards protecting the enterprise infrastructure. She also talks about her transformation from telling leader to a facilitative leader. She talks about the wonder of networks and volunteering in organizations. And we talk about all the career changes in which a rhythm is created at a macro level. Hello, good morning, Chitra. Welcome to the Software People Stories podcast. It's an honor to be your host, and it's nice to see the tables turn.
Thank you, Gayatri. Very good morning to you. It's wonderful that you agreed to be a partner, a co-host on the Software People Story. So a very warm welcome to you as a host too.
Co-host, I love that word. Thank you so much. And I wanted you to start. What are the various careers that you have held in your various roles in your long career? That I think it will be great to glimpse for our listeners.
Okay, so while people, often talk about career as a fairly programmatic path for most people, or even it appears to be that a lot of people think of career as uh, some sort of climbing of a ladder. Yes, to a lot of people, it is also a journey with really no destination in mind. And I sort of put myself in the second category. When I look back, especially now, and I started my career as a software developer in avionics software. That to me was everything was new because I had a background in electronics engineering.
Okay.
And this was computer science or programming, to be more specific. And even the programming language that I first learned and literally on the job was Ada.
Oh.
That itself was, I'd say, the start of a career all by itself. Just learning the constructs of programming, things like data structures, everything from being on the job rather than it being taught, I think was a very different experience by itself. So I'd say the start of my career was also the start of me beginning to learn from the ecosystem around me.
Okay.
I was lucky in the sense to have good mentors, good teachers in the workplace that comprised of students who were still interning at the company that I started with, and experienced scientists who came from a lot of the DRDO labs. So for me, I feel very lucky to have had these people at the start of my working career
Okay.
to be able to teach, guide, and actually help me understand the nitty-gritties of how to develop software, how to integrate code, how to test code, and ultimately create a working solution or a product.
Wow. What an
So
awesome way to start your career.
I really think so too. That was great. It also helped me begin to start my own exploration. So this is one shift that I saw in myself from being someone who was always taught something, which is also largely how our educational institutes operated at that point in time. Was you were taught something, you learned it, and then you kind of prepared for an exam and you qualified yourself.
Okay.
But one thing I always enjoyed was working in the lab, setting up experiments and things like that. So to me, my career, I realized always had to have an element of experimentation and exploration and discovery, along with delivery. So the first part of my career, being in a research center for about 3 or 4 years, was a lot on experiments, exploration, and discovery. So from ADA, for example, I began picking up how to program using Java and the concepts of object-oriented programming, with when UML made its appearance as an approach to designing software.
Right.
Unified modeling language.
I remember that, yeah.
I know. So taking this with me, I sort of embarked on a second journey with a very different organization, a product company, and into systems engineering. And there, I think I started looking or understanding about actually how platforms and systems work. So learning about operating systems, file systems, and the whole networking stack, if you will.
Okay.
That was what I'd say was the next part of my career journey.
It almost sounds like that OS layer, the first 5 of them you were experimenting in the second part of your career.
Yes, to a large extent, yes.
All right.
So, but the second part of my career was probably the first time I got into active project and product delivery. So really understanding that there are people out there that are using your product, how an entire infrastructure for an organization was built out of a collection of products. Starting from the operating system that keeps everything running and the applications on top of it that were serving various needs. So in this company, there was the server, the file servers, the operating system, and perhaps looking at the early days of how identities were managed and also how firewalls were built. So in a sense, it was a glimpse into how the tech infrastructure of a company was sort of laid out. People were running applications to run the business. People were concerned about the security of their data centers and their data, which meant understanding firewalls, understanding minds of hackers or malicious attacks, beginning to understand patterns in programming and software, but also an understanding of actually, for the first time, empathy for a user. Typically, the users that we were addressing were either CIOs or IT heads, people who were helping to run the IT infrastructure for various companies.
Okay. Wow. The cybersecurity was quite popular even then. I think today you think that's the buzzword. So
I know it was, I think, very popular. It's funny, how holes or weaknesses in an interconnected world reveal themselves. So some of them were just bad programming, where you could cause stack overflows, then bring whole servers down and then entire infrastructure down. Once people, I think, started understanding the power of how people were using the internet or developing personas and usage profiles, that led to different kinds of attacks or hacks, and the whole security piece has now evolved to a stage where it's become so critical. It's one thing to be out there, but it's another thing to watch yourself and your footprints and your identity in the interest of safeguarding your company.
Yeah. It has become center stage today. You start designing for your security right at the get-go, rather than that becoming an afterthought and doing only security testing late in the stage right now, which is a great development. So you moved from a exploration, discovery, to a actually empathy driven developer to understand continuously getting feedback and as well as understanding how your personas work.
Yes, and actually moved into system testing, which was even more challenging because you had to create or replicate environments which are very similar to customer environments. Developing or building on the user empathy aspect, this was an organization that encouraged us a lot to listen on support calls. So this was first line support, actually listening to customers like large banks, oil and gas suppliers, telecom people who were calling in to report certain issues. The fact that the software that you're building could manifest into issues on the ground in so many different ways itself was a sort of grounding or a very leveling experience in itself.
And sometimes you see the size of it, it also makes you be more inspired to go the next day, right?
Absolutely. And the meaning of the word quality and building in quality took on a very, very different understanding. So all of a sudden, there was a switch in the mind with respect to how you approach even designing a test environment in such a way that you want to ensure that you are delivering the best out there. This whole second career shift with respect to empathizing more with end users. And also, I would say a very key shift for me and probably got me thinking on the lines of moving into management was I really enjoy working with people and strong believer in more minds put together can solve a problem better. So being exposed to diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, just to get a better product out there.
In agile world, we keep talking about collaboration and bringing people together. I think a lot of organizations have been doing it without tagging it really with a brand or it was their way of working in itself imbibed into the culture, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I think we all see when we also transition from, let's say, being a individual contributor or a developer to roles in management. And very honestly, as a first-time manager, I think I felt that I needed to tell the team what to do and that they were looking to me for direction. That is also a sort of transition in my career where I realized that, hey, can I shift to being from being a more telling person to being a little more facilitative? And then just sitting back and observing the flow of ideas and thoughts, the best out there to solve a problem and doing it collectively rather than saying that, okay, the manager says do this and therefore do it.
Yeah. And this also ties into the teamwork, right? I doesn't exist in a team for a principle we often refer to, right?
Absolutely. In fact, one thing that a thought that just came to my mind here and probably realized it somewhere in the middle of my career was I started off, at a very young age playing basketball. And one was there was no space for personal glory. It was about working together as a team and, finding your rhythm as a team.
Yeah.
And that takes months, if not years. You instinctively know how a person runs or how a person moves is the best position that a person plays in, and how do you help that person get there to actually take that shot, knowing that the probability of converting the shot is higher from that individual's position of strength. So played out somewhere in the middle of my career is, I think the first realization of that came in while interviewing candidates when you begin to shift your thinking towards what is it that this person can bring to the table? What is it that I can uncover in a 45-minute or 1-hour conversation during an interview so that I am able to give this person the best opportunity rather than do you know this?
Yeah, a personal touch that comes through, right? It's not just about what are the accomplishments that person has had, but also is this person going to be a team player? Is this person going to be an asset to the organization instead of being a plain hero? So Very true.
Yes, the rhythm in the team.
Mhm.
I think finding rhythm, in fact, I was just listening to a podcast recently that talked about how babies as young as a year old are able to find a rhythm with each other. So the experiment was something like a group of researchers
Mhm.
actually brought in about 8 or 10 babies, all in the age group of 12 to about 16 months.
Okay.
And they began to play. They strapped the babies onto themselves face forward, and they began to play music. So they played a couple of different kinds of music. Some of it was peppy and more like dance music, and the other was it had a rhythm to it, you know.
Okay.
And after a couple of minutes, they put the babies down, and the babies were playing, and they observed something very interesting. They found that these babies were actually beginning to help each other play or find something or build something or pick up a toy. And their hypothesis that as communities and as people and as part of society, we we need to find a rhythm, and once the rhythm sets, we sort of naturally begin to help and collaborate with each other. So in fact, after listening to this is when I sort of reflected back on how, we talk about the formation of teams in stages of, storming, forming, norming, and performing.
Right.
And I think it's all about a team finding its rhythm. And once it reaches that certain stage, things begin to happen. People begin to work together, and I think people give their best to sort of deliver the best products possible. What are
Okay.
your thoughts on that, Gayatri?
When you're talking to me about rhythm, one of the things that I clearly think of is I recently heard this video from A.R. Rahman on Talam, where he talks about how the boat race, Vallam Kali, that boat race
Yep.
that happens in Kerala, which everything is around their rhythm. And all they do is they actually practice with only the rhythm in their head. And they keep that in their mind, and then that kind of steers together. In a race, back to the sports, right? If you don't have that, if all of us are in a different mode, it leads to completely dissonance, right? I think that is a very, very important thought of saying we are in any of these wavelength. If you're from EC, when you're saying okay, if you're all from different wavelength, you're actually negating each other. While if we are all in the same wavelength, you're actually amplifying effect happens. Just like how we're talking about in a multiplier. I'm very thrilled to have this conversation because all these are connecting bits of it.
No, it's funny you brought that up, because when I was just trying to figure out, hey, what shall we talk about today? The interconnectedness of things was something that actually came to my mind. And, I know we're talking about multiple careers. We're talking about rhythm and teamwork. We're talking about basketball. Each one of these is mini career experiences for me.
Very true.
You
Very
know,
true.
yeah. So even moving from management to senior management to entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
right? And even at this stage, as I'm working with PM Power as a coach and training and consulting, I'm already curiously wondering what my next career would be. You've talked about continuous learning. In some sense, to me, continuous learning, a function of curiosity and many other things, also can give rise to new careers. So why stick on to a single career? It just gives you that much opportunity to explore and discover and experiment and live interesting lives.
It's after all one life, right? I
Yes.
try different things, and this is also back to earlier when organizations grew like 50% or 100%. It
Mm.
made sense to have a ladder or the invisible ladder going up. But when at least in technology, deepening rather than widening in terms of using AI/ML, using various deeper technologies, including deep learning for that matter, I think it makes sense to try exploring new technologies as well as new careers to keep ourselves motivated as well as keep ourselves engaged in many different facets. That kind of opens up different facets or different careers in our life.
Contributes to continuous learning. And I think more importantly, at least what I find happening with me
Mhm.
is continuous learning about myself. And that in some ways is helping me want to do better
Yeah.
for the people that I'm working with. So very often this was something that, if I can contrast with working in a very monotonous way, this is a topic for another day, is how to break out of complacency or monotony. I very often find myself not wanting to wake up and face the day or even go to work. That's a very different situation today, where when I come back in the evening after a day spent with a client, I'm very refreshed to wake up the next day morning and say, hey, we talked about these areas. What is it that I can explore with them to see if I can, bring something to the table that may be helpful? That's a shift that I'm seeing in this new career with my own mindset. I'm also trying to see how I can encourage people to look at it that way. Is that, don't get bogged down by the fact that you were not able to accomplish something or achieve something at the end of the day, but just calmly take it away as a problem and maybe sleep over it. A lot of people tell us if you sleep over something, you're likely to wake up finding an answer.
Our subconscious mind is a
Yes.
lot more powerful, right?
So, yeah, in fact, that brings up an interesting point to say is sometimes things around us just conspire to help us find the solution if we don't really think about it too much, but sort of stay with it and examine it from different angles, look at it from different perspectives. So multiple ways of problem solving.
Yeah, in fact, one of the hardest books I've read is this slow thinking and fast thinking, where he actually the economist, he actually talks about, I'm trying to remember his name. I think Daniel Kahneman. He actually talks about all of us are wired to do slow thinking as well as fast thinking. Slow thinking is a lot more deeper, and you spoke about you sleep over something and then get back to it, right? That's where slow thinking really works. And he talks about fast thinking more of just get it done kind of a thing. So very very cool way of connecting it. So Chitra, coming to your different careers, right? A lot of women leaders as well as entrepreneurs want to understand, when do they start becoming their startup, because a lot of us are born with multiple ideas, right? We see something, our creative mind goes into the overdrive and says, okay, hey, this is something that could happen. How can we make it more productized and launch it to the market? What was that in point, if you will, when you said, okay, hey, I'm gonna start it?
When to start? I would say any time is a good time to start,
Mm-hmm.
because these are questions that I also battled with. I mean, along with the highly creative thoughts that kept coming, I think what made me start was the frustration of not starting,
Okay.
and having being a prisoner of my own thoughts. And why I say that the time is now to start is otherwise you will just never, it'll just remain ideas in your mind. And at least a frustration point for me was I would get those ideas, while I'm probably driving somewhere, or I am, working in the garden or in the kitchen. And then by the time I finished doing what I was doing, I would have forgotten those ideas. So I said, I am forgetting. I am constraining myself with my own set of thoughts. Why not just start? Any time is a good time to start.
Awesome, awesome. Saying that if you're more frustrated or if you want to really, really start, that's the right time to start. That way,
Absolutely.
that way you have a fire in the belly and saying, yes, I want to do it. So what were your, initial problem statement, if you will, when you started off?
So after I quit, I actually consulted with a data analytics company for about a year,
Okay.
which was all about working in an experimental mode, because problem statements were there, but the solutions were unknown on both sides. So it was co-creating what the solution could be and working towards it. So that also sort of gave fuel to my initial thought, which was there's dearth of product like thinking in a lot of people who have ideas. And how can we help them get from idea to execution, or an idea to a product? my experience of about a year with these folks sort of gave me the confidence and more meat to my idea to sort of say that, hey, yes, there is a way of helping people who are actually looking to work on their idea and how to take it to market, etc. That sort of gave the impetus to start this venture
Okay.
into product strategy and product management consulting.
Okay. Wow.
And the other area that we also looked at was digital transformation. And the idea or the motivation there was traditional businesses are also looking to go digital. They have some idea of what it means to go digital, but how can we help them really get to where they want to be so that it has a more positive impact, a more positive outcome on their business?
Very, very cool. So, in fact, when you were talking about it, I'm remembering the book by C.K. Prella, who spoke about co-creation as a way to go in future. If you look at it, even Nike shoes are being co-created by the consumers, where the volume has moved towards one, where it is all co-created based on individual specification, as more and more of us wants customization more than the mass manufacturing. So 3 things I'm hearing. One is fire in the belly. You want to start. Second is, the area in which you have specialization, right? And the third is what is really the market needs. So a lot of organizations need digital transformation. I have specialization. I want to do it. I think this is I really love this way of, looking at it as your Ikigai. And that's your area in which you try. Very, very cool, Chitra.
You've tied it together brilliantly, Gayathri, so thank you.
This is you.
I think we're co-creating something very interesting here. Maybe we should actually look at creating maybe a small series of podcasts on just this natural conversations, and can it then lead to something that is helpful to people? And I can already see it happening.
Yeah, and definitely. I think that's a great idea of, we can start a mini series around it. I actually am fresh out of a GHCI conference, 3 days of extremely energetic set of people with 6,000, minds, brilliant minds. Levels of innovation was like unthinkable set of innovation, right from AI being used for cancer research to agriculture being benefited from IoT. So I was super energetic from that. I want to hear from you. How has your association been with women empowerment, GHCI, for 10 plus years?
Wow. While you were saying it, I can imagine what you must have experienced. And it makes me feel happy that it has sort of the same that it has been since 10 years. I still remember in 2009 when a motley group of us came together. I think we were about 14, 15 of us, and we sat for a whole day in I think it was in the Google office, simply to, first of all, understand what this conference was all about, and then figure out, hey, what is it that we can do and how can we bring it together? That year it was 600 attendees, probably 4 tracks that we could manage. People came away feeling exactly what you felt. And, just at this conference dinner, I heard somebody say that the GHCI has been a place where you hear about a technology, people talk about it, and 3 years later, hey, it's there in the market. It's almost been a path breaker, or it's been the point where the news is broken first. Apart from that, I think in terms of empowering people, or even I have not seen such a large volunteer group that has come together to create and curate and help deliver a conference like this. And every year, I think more and more, at least when I was working with a company that was actively sponsoring the conference, I found myself encouraging the women engineers within the organization to at least submit papers, submit your ideas, submit your thoughts. Don't worry whether it will be accepted or not. If it's something that is going to be part of the conference or meant to be, it will be up there. And really happy to say that thanks at least to the number of submissions that went in, every year we had at least one speaker from the company there. And that was so empowering for this individual
Yes,
to be able to stand there and talk about their, their idea, their work, and network with others.
so many people. True. In fact, it's very uplifting. It's becoming a big movement by itself. And a lot of confident speakers, confident leaders I see emerged as well as continuous present, right? Emerging. I think I came out with a lot of respect for the 10 plus years of volunteering that you have done.
Like you mentioned, it became a catalyst for innovation of sorts. Very similar things happened in the organization that I was working with, as well as in other places. People came back and said, how can we get this going? In fact, it resulted in internal tech fests happening in a lot of companies that I saw, which were led and driven by women. And in fact, one of the outcomes of this, some people who came away really motivated from these conferences started the women's hackathon groups in their organizations, and today they have actually grown it to an organizations like Women Who Code and regular meetups that happen here for women techies.
And specific technologies also. There are,
yes.
Ruby Rails, Women Who Code, lots of, very specific ones are there. In fact, when I was speaking to my niece who came from US, she's saying how STEM is a big thing and very few women are in STEM. I was like, really? Here, actually, it's not true. A lot of women there. Maybe we have lesser women as we go higher in the leadership front, but at the starting or in the college, as well as in the initial 6 to 8 years, India doesn't have that culture of, differentiation or discrimination in itself, which is a great thing, right?
Yes. And I think this time the leader of the conference also acknowledged that, saying that we don't have this issue. And I distinctly remember NASCOM actually providing us the data saying that we do not have these issues here. And we also inherently, instinctively know it, because you talk to any high school children here, and particularly girls, they are not shy about or they are not hesitant to take up any of the STEM field subjects. They are in fact very comfortable with it. They are curious, want to explore more about it. And even, I would say, even in educational institutions, it is touching the 50-50 ratio in almost all disciplines related to STEM fields. From a STEM appreciation and adoption standpoint, at least, I think we're in a good place, I would say.
Tying it back to our career changes, a lot of women were talking about how they have also been changing their careers based on where they are in their whole life, where it is. They have changed their career, and then they have done a back and forth. So that's being very adaptive. It's very inspiring to hear one of the keynote speakers from BNY Mellon. He was the head of HR. He spoke about how, as a man, he also has done it. And we keep saying that it's women. Actually, it's not true. Everybody goes through this change, and it is kind of amplified, if you will, for women, but it is there at every level and every person.
There's a lot of people that I hear talking as well as doing now, especially as we get into our 40s and 50s and 60s, of doing just different things, creating different careers for themselves, which I think is very wonderfully liberating and empowering, because then you're not bound by saying that I only need to do this. Now that I have chosen this as my career, this is my only path. There's nothing wrong in it, but yet the fact that so many people are doing different things at different points in time in their lives is something that's just fantastic.
It is quite liberating in terms of saying, hey, I can make a choice, and that choice can only be for a near term or a short term, and then I can keep changing my direction and move on from there. This is fantastic. It's been excellent talking to you, Chitra, and I feel I have come off knowing a lot from now about you, more than what I knew already. I hope listeners will too.
Thank you, Gayathri. I share the same sentiment about having had this conversation with you. I think it's been mutually a really wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.